Here's another shining example where we can't trust the media. There's a recent article, I think it's on Radio 4 via The Times, interviewing Peter Hitchens. I like what Peter Hitchens has to say. I'm not necessarily over fond of how he delivers it sometimes. It can be a bit, I don't know, sometimes I think he talks down to people, like everybody ought to know what's going on in the world, and obviously we don't. Some of us have jobs to go to, families to look after, football kits to wash, elderly relatives to look after, and a shed load of other stuff going on. But there is this interview. In fact, better than that, I'll let you listen to the first paragraph of what he says. This is Christopher, looking as happy as he normally looks like. Obviously, he looks like he's just received the news about Armageddon every time you see him.
I for long have thought that the political impasse of now will end with some kind of deal between one Alexander Boris Johnson and one Nigel Farage.
Oh, you think?
That's what he thinks. Boris Johnson and Nigel Farage. For a start, history would tell me that Hitchens isn't a big fan of Nigel Farage, and I don't know if you've been looking at the polls lately, and I'm not saying this because I particularly support reform, as you know I do at the moment. It's because it's just common sense that, hang on, here's Farage with only 5 MPs, growing in popularity, stealing the polls, doing what he said he'd do at the council level. So he's doing all right, isn't he? For a politician, he's actually doing all right. Whether you agree with him or not, it's a different issue. And you've got Boris Johnson, who's tanked support, justifiably so, after basically promising a shed load of things and just delivering what his wife seemed to be interested in, which is wokeness. Boris Johnson is toxic now. And what you've got to remember is Nigel Farage never mentions working with Boris. He never mentions working with the Tories. It's only journalists. This is why I bring up the media. It's only journalists speak. It's journalist talk, because they've naff all else to talk about. They've got to get you in with something interesting. So it's much more interesting to suggest a colourful character, whether he's good or he's bad. He's colourful, is Boris, working with Farage. I don't think Farage would cross the room to work with Boris Johnson. I think he might work with Dominic Cummings on the QT through the back door. How's your father? Nobody knows. But I seriously doubt, and there's absolutely no rumours anywhere coming from Reform about that being a possibility. Why should they? Boris, if you voted for Brexit, you got Brighton. If you voted to leave, you got Brexit. If you wanted lockdown sooner, he didn't lock down soon enough. And if you didn't want lockdown, he shouldn't have locked down at all. He spaffed money away on PPE and the rollout. He can't do right for doing wrong because he's done so much wrong. He broke net zero policies from page 54 to top of the bill. A lot of the stuff he brought in, immigration was at record levels, and he did absolutely nothing to stop the boats because they were coming in when Boris was there. He's also done nothing to stop the outdated visa system. There's a number of things he could have done with immigration. He didn't do anything during his tenure. And when I say the thing about being brought forward from page 54 of the manifesto, what you've got to remember is if it was left on page 54 of the manifesto, then addressing all these policies that are now crippling us wouldn't have got handled till he was in a second term of office, which would theoretically have been round about now. So we'd have had all that time where he's been in office for a couple of years, then all that upheaval with Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak, and then finally, with the kiss of death, Keir Starmer. If you think Gotham's gone dark, believe me, Britain's even darker. He could have saved this country from all that by just following through on the policies and the stuff that he said he'd do. Instead, he kind of veered off track, which is why Dominic Cummings is so angry with him and angry at the Tory government, because he was brought in to sort out the civil service, do what basically Reform intend to do if they do get in, and it's never gotten done because of the way Boris handled it. It went completely the other way. Well, we should have had Dominic Cummings sifting through the civil service, getting rid of the Blairites. It went completely topsy-turvy. Nothing got done, and more woke people were brought into government, so, to the running of the country. So I can assure you there's absolutely no chatter anywhere that there is a possibility of reform working with Boris bloody Johnson. I've been a supporter of Boris. He was the only man offering Brexit. How could a Brexiteer not support him when nobody else was doing it? It's what you call Hobson's choice. So unfortunately we're here again, aren't we? We've got a Hobson's choice with who? Lib Dems, SNP, Labour, the Tories. Nobody's done anything about immigration. Nobody's done anything about all these other crippling policies that have rocketed the cost of living. And not forget the big one, of course, with Boris, that visit across to Ukraine where peace talks were on the table, the Minsk Accord too, and all of a sudden Boris goes after a phone call to Biden and it's all off the table. And suddenly he gets paid millions for speeches that I can't even find that he did. So I really do think that Boris Johnson is nowhere near any sort of agreement. Nigel Farage is very disappointed in how the Tories have behaved after giving them the floor to get to power in 2019 to deliver Brexit, and then it got dragged on and on and on and on, right up to the wire, and even then it's not been delivered. We've never exercised any of the benefits that we could have done. So it's a complete betrayal. Boris is the head of the snake on this one, and whilst I do admire what Peter Hitchens says, though I think I liked his brother better, he's not right on this. Then we come to point number 2, which is why I'm always saying, don't expect to agree with everything a politician says. You're never going to get that from a politician. You won't like everything they say, so you've got to look at, do they agree with your thinking on the big stuff? That's what I look at. Does he think like me on this, that and the other? And the other bits in between that I don't like, I'd kind of tend to ignore. So here's a shining example with someone called Tim Farron, a Lib Dem MP for Westmoreland. I'd never vote for the Lib Dems. Not a chance, not with Ed. Stuff the postmasters Davy as the leader. They wouldn't be my cup of tea anyway, politics-wise. But proving once again, sometimes even people like the Lib Dems can come out with a snippet of daylight. Here's Tim Farron last October in the House of Commons, just after Labour have taken over. Listen to what he says about the policy. It's about farming. Listen to what he says. It's really good, is this? And it's Lib Dems.
Invented by the previous Conservative government, and for the time being at least still maintained by this Labour government, which this is the maddest thing I've heard myself say in this place, and I've said some mad things. An agricultural policy that is based on disincentivising the production of food. Can we believe that that is literally the case? A policy created by that party for the time being, maintained at least by the party now currently in power. And the consequence of this is that we will only have, 55% of the food that we eat in this country is produced in this country. I talked to Adam Day, who is from the Cumbrian Farmers Network, who's reported in the Farmers Guardian. These are absolutely legitimate figures. We have a year-on-year reduction in the number of sheep in this country of 4.2%. I'll tell you what, Madam Deputy Speaker, if you destock the fells of animals, you soon after destock the countryside of human beings. And if we're losing farms and losing farmers, of which we are as we speak, then not only are we losing our ability to feed ourselves as a country, we're undermining our ability to deliver for the environment. Let's not fall into the mistake, the mistake of thinking this is a debate between caring for the environment and producing food. We either do them both or we don't do them at all. 70% of Britain's land mass, England's land mass, is agriculturally greater across the UK as a whole, is agricultural. If we think we're tackling the climate or nature crises without farmers, we are kidding ourselves. The greenest policies in the world will be just bits of paper in a drawer if we don't have the farmers on the ground to put them into practice.
Now, you can take that one of two ways, because he's obviously talking about the agenda. But you do need your farmers, and you need your farmers to be incentivised to farm. And when you're going to take the house off them to pay a tax bill because it's being handed down to yet another farmer who needs it to basically run his business, that's no incentive at all. So even, I'm showing you Tim because he's a politician I don't particularly adhere to, but in this instance I think there's a lot to be said for what he's saying there, because he does have the ear of the Parliament. It's quite a busy You know, it's quite a few there on the benches, and he is making sense. So the thing to do with politicians, rather than have to think, oh, I've got to like everything they do and everything they say, you know, you work in a working environment, you don't like everything your boss tells you to do, you don't like everything your colleagues do, but you get on with it, you work around it. That's what we have to do with our politicians. And what we have to hope for is that some sensibilities come back into politics. We're pushing all the time, remember. Starmer is being pushed every single day of the week. He's having to make U-turns, he's having to listen. He's not just as powerful as he thinks because he's wobbled by his own party. So we are making headroads all the time. All this chatter, I put a message up yesterday on my Facebook page. Someone messaged me to say she'd been watching me on YouTube and I've been saying, talk to people, just open it up. You're on a dog walk or in the supermarket, just open up about politics. Just general state of the country will do. Get people talking and then you can lead them down to what can be done about it. Anyway, the message was so good, without divulging her name and the name of her dog, I decided to share it on my Facebook page because she basically said, June, I've been doing what you said when I've been out walking my dog. I've been talking to people and normally it's about the weather or what the dog's doing. And you're absolutely right. As soon as I started talking about the state of the country, people were coming back immediately with their version of events. Everybody sees it basically the same. They've never been so depressed. They've never felt so down. They've never seen it run so badly. These are your troops on the ground. These are the people we need to push back. We need people to know, and we need to drop little hints like actually emailing your MP does have a massive effect, especially if you've got a small majority. So I put that post up and left it. And then I went back on this morning to see how it had done. It had 2,000 likes and it had reached 18,000 people. So that one message to me, where she was just telling me that she'd had a go at what I was saying, had reached a further 18,000 people. The thread, if you go on my Facebook page, June Slater Chief Gammon, if you go, I can't get rid of the title because I don't know how to take it off my name. If you go on that Facebook page and look at the thread on that post, every single person on that thread is saying just the same thing. They're saying that they're talking about this to people out in the big wide world and people are waking up. That's what they're saying. They might not be politically active, they might not have a Twitter or a Facebook account talking about politics, but it doesn't mean they're not thinking about politics, and it doesn't mean they don't know it's going wrong, and it doesn't mean they don't know they can do something about it. So it all works, and this is why you have to get so down about things. Just sitting here thinking, oh, we've got another 4 years to do. During that 4 years, we are kicking and screaming. We're like that baby that won't go to sleep. Tiny little thing in a back bedroom, but it won't stop crying. It keeps the whole family up at night. We are that screaming baby. We are that screaming baby that's going to keep Keir Starmer up at night. Because the one thing he does, he doesn't want to lose power. He doesn't want to not be the Prime Minister. He wanted to be the Prime Minister. Lembit Orpik, do you remember him? He was an MP. He's just been interviewed by Roger Guibel that's interviewed me yesterday. And something he said in his interview, which I thought was really quite poignant, he said the thing that attracts him to Nigel Farage, he doesn't think there's any hope from other parties. He thinks the Tories are toast and he thinks that Labour are abysmal. But he said the thing that attracts him is Nigel Farage doesn't just yearn to be the Prime Minister. He's going to do it because it has to be done. And that's usually a better politician, isn't it? And he said the people in Westminster, people in Parliament, are there because they can't get a better paid job anywhere else. And yet the people that should be in Westminster would be the people that would have the worst paid job that they could get anywhere else if they were in. And that's what's wrong. We've got people in Westminster that are so bloody lucky to get that sort of remuneration from this country with their expenses and their freebie travel and paying the second home heating bills and all the other fringe benefits, that they are not up to calibre. In fact, it was said in another interview that we've got the lowest educated cabinet we've ever had. That's incredible. We've got the most unfamous cabinet we've ever had. Can you believe that? Most people don't know who's on the front bench. You'll know Lammy and you know Angela, and you'll know, can't remember the other one, that's always sucking up to Muslims, what's she called? always goes in with headscarf on and vote for me, vote for me. You know what I mean? Just looks a bit of an hard case. So unless you'll probably be a bit of a fater. Can't remember her name. I had to pause it then to have a think. Jess Phillips. She looks like a bit of a bruiser to me. Probably isn't. Who are these people? How did they get those jobs? We've gone from absolutely mega-loaded chinless wonders who don't give a toss about the working man to the party that should be putting the working man at the forefront, who don't give a toss about anybody because they're that out of touch and they're just focused on basically drip feeding a form of communism. They're not interested in what anybody thinks. So that's where we sit. I just thought I'd tell you all that. I thought what Lembit said was quite interesting about Parliament and gravy traders, because we do have a shed load. Anyway, if you do like what I do, don't forget to press subscribe, because it does make a difference to my reach. And it will always be minimum advertising. No, I won't ever put ad breaks and stuff like that. I'm not interested. Actually, I was watching one of my ads. It was a thing about a back pain. About back pain. Then there was another ad on. It was a thing about joint pain. Then I thought, does it put this on because of my age? Is it because of how old I am running YouTube channel? I don't know. Maybe not.